Whipped if I don't let my dad move in with me because of my stepmom. It started with a voicemail, not a call. Not a text, a voicemail. That's how I found out my dad might need a place to stay. Hey, sweetheart, his voice said, a little too casual for someone about to drop emotional dynamite. Things are rough here. I might need a place for a while. You've got that spare room, right? And then, as if he were talking about weather, not the collapse of his marriage. Of course, your stepmom would be with me. That last sentence made me freeze. My stepmom, Karen. The woman who had once called me her daughter but then turned cold the moment my dad married her. The woman who forgot to invite me to Christmas dinners, but made sure to post family pictures online caption all together at last. The woman who, when I was 19 and came home for the summer, told me gently, with that fake sweet smile of hers, that maybe next time you should give us a heads up before showing up. You know, boundaries. And now my dad wanted to bring her into my home. When I called him back, I tried to keep my voice calm. Dad, what happened? He sighed. We had some financial trouble. Karen's shop closed, the mortgage got messy, and well, we might lose the house. I swallowed hard. I'm sorry, Dad, but why would you need to move in with me? He hesitated. You're the only one I trust. That stung because it was both a compliment and a lie. I knew how their marriage worked. Karen didn't go anywhere she didn't approve of first. If he was coming, it meant she was coming too. The following weekend, I drove out to their house to see things for myself. Karen was on the porch when I arrived, wearing that tight, pitying smile. Oh, honey, she said before I could even step out of the car. You really don't need to worry about us. Your father just overreacts sometimes. Inside, Dad sat at the kitchen table, bills spread out like confetti of despair. He looked small, tired, but she was perfectly fine, manicured, unbothered. Dad, I said quietly, if you need help, I can help you. But I can't take both of you in. I just can't. Karen tilted her head. You'd split us up after everything we've done for you. I almost laughed. Done for me? Like convincing my dad not to help pay for my college because it would teach me independence. Like forgetting my birthday 3 years in a row. Like pretending she didn't see the tears when she accidentally threw away photos of my mom. Dad looked torn. You know I can't just leave her, sweetheart. I nodded. And I can't live with her. A few days later, the guilt calls began. My aunt said I was being selfish. My dad texted, well, find another place, don't worry, followed by, I just wish you cared a little more. Even my cousin chimed in. They're your family. You don't abandon family. But where were they when I was a teenager trying to visit my dad and Karen told me, "He's busy. Maybe next weekend." Where were they when she called my mom a mistake at a family barbecue and everyone laughed awkwardly? Instead of defending us, now they wanted me to open my door to her. Last night, Dad called again. He sounded desperate. Please, honey, it's just temporary. You won't even notice us there. I looked around my small apartment. My safe space, the only place I had built entirely for me. The idea of her walking through my kitchen, rearranging things, leaving passive-aggressive notes, it made my skin crawl. So I said no. Silence. Then, softly, I never thought my daughter would turn her back on me. I wanted to scream that I wasn't turning my back. I was protecting what little peace I had left, but I didn't. I just hung up. Now I'm sitting here, staring at my phone, wondering if I'm the bad guy for choosing my own sanity over his comfort. Because it's not just about space. It's about years of being pushed aside, told to be understanding, told that family means forgiveness. Maybe it does, but maybe it also means finally saying, enough. Continuation. Part 2, the guests who never left. 2 weeks passed before I heard from my dad again. It was a Sunday morning, gray and quiet. The kind of day that makes you want to stay under a blanket and forget the world exists. My phone buzzed, a message from him. Well, be there round 5. My chest tightened. Before I could reply, a picture came through. Their packed SUV, boxes, suitcases, even a small houseplant I recognized from their kitchen window. They were coming, without asking. I called immediately, panic and anger fighting to reach my throat first. Dad, what the hell do you mean you'll be here at 5? He sounded too calm. We can't find anywhere else, sweetheart. Just for a few nights. Karen's upset. I didn't want her to feel unwanted. My pulse pounded in my ears. You mean after I said no, you just decided you'd do it anyway? He sighed. that deep, fatherly sigh that always made me feel like a disobedient child. You'll understand one day when you have a family of your own. The call ended before I could reply. At 5:12 p.m., there was a knock on my door. Karen stood there first, smiling tightly, wearing perfume so strong it made the hallway feel suffocating. Behind her, Dad carried boxes labeled dishes, books, personal. I froze for a moment, then stepped aside because I didn't know what else to do. "Thank you, sweetheart," Dad said softly, brushing past me. Karen added, "See, I told you she'd come around." They set up in the living room like they owned it. Within an hour, Karen had rearranged my throw pillows and suggested that my TV looked better on the other wall. She commented on the smell of my candles too strong, the type of bread I bought so processed, and even the color of my towels, grays so depressing. That night, I lay in bed listening to her laughter flow down the hallway, that sharp, fake laugh that always followed her insults. By the third day, my apartment no longer felt like mine. My dad tried to be kind. He cooked dinner, cleaned up, told old stories to fill the awkward silences. But every time Karen opened her mouth, tension seeped back in like smoke. Once, I caught her in my bedroom, rummaging through my drawers. When I demanded to know what she was doing, she smiled and said, "Oh, honey, I was just checking if you had any spare sheets. You never told me where you keep your linens." "My linens? In my room." I told her not to go through my things. She pouted. "No need to be rude. We're all family here." But that word, family, it like a punch. It got worse when my dad wasn't around. One afternoon, while he was out looking for jobs, Karen cornered me in the kitchen. "You really don't appreciate what your father's done for you, do you?" she said, crossing her arms. I froze, a dish still in my hands. She smiled, that patronizing curve of her lips I'd known since I was 16. "He loves you so much, but you've always been difficult. You make him feel guilty for moving on, for being happy. It's not fair to him." My throat went dry. "You don't get to tell me what's fair, Karen." Her eyes gleamed. "Oh, I think I do. Because unlike you, I've actually been there for him." That night, I locked my bedroom door. 2 weeks turned into a month. They were still there. No mention of leaving. Dad's job hunt had slowed down. Karen had taken to watching TV all day and sighing loudly whenever I left my room, like my presence was an inconvenience in their home. I started staying late at work, coming home when I was sure they'd be asleep. But even then, Karen's perfume lingered in the air and my peace felt stolen. One morning, I found my mom's photo, the one I kept on the bookshelf, turned face down. When I asked about it, Karen said lightly it just didn't fit the decor. Something in me cracked. That evening, I told my dad we needed to talk. He was sitting on the couch, reading the newspaper as if everything was normal. "Dad," I said, voice shaking, "you both need to find somewhere else to stay. I've been patient, but this isn't working." He looked startled. "What? We just need a little more time." I cut him off. "It's been over a month. She goes through my things. She disrespects my space. I hesitated, then lowered my voice. She turned Mom's photo down. His jaw tightened. "You're overreacting." Karen didn't mean anything by it. "Dad," I said softly, "you keep asking me to understand her, but you've never once asked her to understand me." Karen walked in mid-conversation, holding a mug of tea. "Oh, is this another family drama? Because if you're trying to make us leave, maybe you should remember who actually took care of your father when he was sick." I looked at her, really looked, at her smug smile, at my dad's quiet helplessness, at the home that no longer felt like mine. And I said, "Get out." The silence that followed felt eternal. My dad's face fell. "Sweetheart." I shook my head. "No. I told you before you came." I said no. "You ignored me. You both did. You don't respect me, and I can't live like this anymore." Karen set down her mug with a clink. "You'll regret this." "Maybe," I said, "but at least you'll have peace." They left 2 days later. Not before Karen muttered something about me being just like my mother, and for the first time, I took it as a compliment. Weeks have passed since then. Dad's texts have grown shorter, colder. He still says he loves me, but now it's followed by, "Karen doesn't understand why you'd throw family away." Maybe I didn't throw family away. Maybe I just refused to let them trample me in the name of love. Sometimes I still hear echoes of Karen's perfume when I walk through my apartment, but now it's mixed with something else, silence. And silence, I've learned, can be the kindest sound in the world. Continuation. Part 3. The return. It had been 6 months since the day I told them to leave. 6 months since the door slammed shut and I finally felt like I could breathe again. The first few weeks afterward were filled with guilt, those ugly, quiet nights where you second-guess everything. I'd stare at my phone, waiting for Dad to text something soft, something like "I understand." But all I got were cold messages about bills, family birthdays I didn't attend, and the same phrase he always ended with, "Karen says hello." After a while, I stopped replying. Then one rainy Thursday, at almost midnight, someone knocked on my door. The sound startled me. It wasn't gentle. It was steady, desperate. When I looked through the peephole, my stomach twisted. It was my dad. Alone. When I opened the door, the first thing I noticed was how much older he looked. His gray hair was longer and kempt. His coat hung loosely off him. His eyes, once so sharp, looked tired in a way I'd never seen before. "Hey, sweetheart," he said, voice trembling just enough to sound real. I stepped aside without a word, and he entered like someone stepping into a church. Slow, reverent, ashamed. "Dad, what are you doing here?" I asked softly. He didn't answer right away. He looked around the apartment as if to check if Karen was hiding behind the furniture. Finally, he said, "She's gone." The words hit like ice water. "Gone?" He nodded, exhaling shakily. "Karen left 3 months ago." I waited for him to say more. "She packed her things, said she couldn't handle the toxicity anymore. Took what little money we had left. I came home one day and the house was empty. No note, nothing." He looked down at his hands. "She took my retirement savings, too. I've been staying with a friend, but I didn't know where else to go." My chest tightened. Part of me wanted to say "I told you so," but another part, the daughter part, just saw a broken man who had given his heart to the wrong person. I made tea. We sat at the same kitchen table where, months ago, we'd fought about boundaries and respect. Now he sat silently, staring into the steam as if it held answers. "I owe you an apology," he said suddenly. I froze. I wasn't sure I'd ever hear those words from him. "For choosing her over you. For pretending she wasn't cruel when she was. I knew, sweetheart. I always knew. But I thought if I kept the peace, if I kept her calm, everything would stay okay." His voice broke. "And I lost you instead." Tears burned my eyes, but I stayed quiet, afraid that if I spoke, I'd fall apart too. He went on. "The thing is, Karen wasn't just manipulative. She was dangerous." My breath caught. She'd been lying about the money for years. The shop closing, the mortgage problems. It was all her. She gambled. Online, mostly. And when I confronted her about it, she laughed. Said I'd always have my perfect daughter to fall back on. He looked up, eyes glassy. "That's why she wanted to move in here. Not because we had nowhere to go. Because she wanted control over you two. She said, and you'll never forget this, if she's under the same roof, she'll finally understand who's really in charge." My stomach twisted with disgust. Every uneasy moment I'd felt around her suddenly made sense. The way she'd looked at me, like I was a rival, not family. He rubbed his temples. "When you told us to leave, I was angry. But later, I realized you saved me. You saved me from her. If we'd stayed longer, she would have destroyed both of us." The room went quiet. Just the soft ticking of the clock and the sound of rain hitting the windows. I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. For the first time in years, he didn't pull away. Over the next few weeks, he stayed with me. Just him. No drama, no manipulation. Just quiet mornings with coffee and crossword puzzles, long talks about the past, about Mom, about how he'd lost himself after she died. Sometimes I'd catch him staring at my bookshelf, where Mom's photo now sat upright again. He never touched it. He just looked at it with a kind of reverent sorrow. One night, he said softly, "She'd be proud of you, you know." I smiled through tears. "You think so?" "I know so." But healing wasn't instant. There were still moments, like when his phone buzzed with an unknown number and he'd tense up. Or when I'd catch him apologizing for things he didn't need to apologize for. Guilt had become a habit for him. One morning, I found a letter on the kitchen table. It wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to Karen. He hadn't sent it. Had written it just to get the words out. "You broke me, but I let you. You taught me to fear peace. She taught me to fight for it again." I folded the letter quietly and left it where I found it. Months later, he got his own apartment. Just a small one-bedroom near the park. We still see each other every Sunday. Sometimes we cook, sometimes we just sit and talk about nothing. The other day, he said, "You know, when you told me no. That was the moment you became stronger than me. I smiled. Maybe I just learned from your mistakes. He chuckled. Then maybe I did something right after all. Sometimes I think about Karen, about how people like her don't really disappear. They find new people to feed on. But that's not my problem anymore, because the woman who once walked into my home uninvited is gone, and the father who left with her is the same man who came back. This time he came home for real.